Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Anchor Watch. Technically, I'm supposed to be on vacation, but when Nayyera becomes available, I will change my damn schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't even think I need to introduce you anymore. If you've not seen her all over the place, if you're not following her, then you are a fool. Nayyera, your background, it's perfect for what we're dealing with. I gotta get your opinions on what is happening right now in the Middle East. I have so many questions and so many comments, but I need to get yours. Can you please explain to me what the hell is going on in the Middle East right now?
Well, this is the thing, right? Like you're asking me, Bobby, to have an opinion that is beyond what? Sorry, what just happened? What are we doing again? Okay, right. Like I'm still trying to play catch up on what's going on every day and every moment. I'm like, oh, okay. JD Vance just had a press conference and he was talking about nobody knows what Iran wants out of a negotiation. I'm like, we've always known what Iran wants out of a negotiation. They want the U.S. to stop bombing, the U.S. to leave the Strait of Hormuz. They want to be able to continue their nuclear program. Right? Like this is like they want to be able to continue their terrorist networks. Like, what do you mean you don't know what they want? The problem is the United States doesn't have a ton of levers right now because we've already bombed. We've already blocked the Strait of Hormuz. So what's next to get the regime to decide to do anything different? Right? This is where I start to lose my mind when people are like, oh, Iran lost the war. I'm like, I get it. So many military installations, so much death, so much. I get that. I get the death and destruction. That is not winning if the United States is still stuck there.
I'm glad you brought this up. If I hear another person tell me that the United States has militarily won this war, I may just go out in the street and play in traffic. And here's why. The reason I'm saying this is because people do not understand military action is politics by another means. The solution to this is political. It is diplomatic. I've said it again. I'll say it again. We have painted ourselves into a diplomatic corner with a military brush. Okay. The United States Navy, as much as I love it, is not going to save you here, nor the Air Force, Army, nobody. The fact that our lead negotiators in this have been a real estate mogul and the president's son-in-law on the most delicate negotiations we've seen maybe in 20, 30, 40 years blows my mind. And everybody's surprised by the reaction that the world has. Now, where are the professionals? Where are the adult negotiators, the diplomatic subject matter experts that are supposed to be in the room?
Oh, most of them were fired on day one of Trump's second administration. I mean, truly, right? They were not replaced by new ambassadors. So most of the Middle East, the countries do not have a U.S. ambassador right now. So they talk to, like you said, the real estate mogul, Steve Witkoff, or they call up the president of the United States directly, right? Like that's how conversations now happen. The experts who actually knew people on the ground in different cities, whether it be in Riyadh or in Tehran or in Oman, they were senior foreign service officers, spent decades getting to learn the language and the culture and building trust, right? It's a trust exchange, credibility that I talk to my counterpart and what you're telling me is actually true. It will happen. Without that integrity and that credibility there, right? Because all those people were fired from their jobs. Actually, funny thing, they're still getting paid to not do their job because it's illegal to fire foreign service officers. So for the past year and a half, we have had the experts being paid by the U.S. government and not allowed to do the jobs that they were trained to do. People I know, friends of mine, and they're the ones really tearing their hair out.
You can't be serious.
Yeah, I'm totally serious.
They're on payroll and they're nowhere to be found.
They're not allowed to work because there's a fight between the Trump administration and the courts about whether or not they can actually be fired. The way that DOJ decided to fire people, there's a foreign service union. So it's the administration up against the union. So they're all like, and they exist. They're getting paid. They're just not allowed to log in and go to work the way they used to. So we have, right? Like we have immediate access to these experts. Don't use them. They're not replaced by anybody. That's the other thing. It's not like new ambassadors have been sworn in or there's another cadre of experts that had come up in the process. Like it just disappeared. That knowledge disappeared. And the challenge is when you don't have that kind of credibility on both sides and, different parties at different levels working their way up through the process, it ends up being, okay, you're talking to me right now, but I don't believe anything you got to say because I know Trump is going to Truth Social something and destroy anything you and I talked about. So what's the point of me talking to you?
Wow. So the system, which was designed to have subject matter expertise in place, was destroyed by the people who need it most. You know what's very mind-blowing to me is you can tell there's not a strategic bone in anybody's body in the White House. Because if you had Doge firing these people and you knew down the line you were going to go after Iran, you wouldn't have fired those people. At least you would think, right? Which shows, one, Doge was the most fake thing we've ever seen. And two, this decision to go into Iran was literally made over a weekend in Mar-a-Lago. There's no other explanation for this.
Option number three, you decide that you're going to outsource your Iran war strategy to Israel.
Let's talk about that. Netanyahu has been pretty low visibly here in the last few weeks.
Well, the guy comes out. He apparently had a pacemaker put in a couple of years ago. That's the last time he disappeared, and then disappeared for a couple of days. There's a whole AI thing about are his hands real? What's going on?
Yes, saw that.
No, he had a pancreatic cancer treatment, one of the deadliest cancers. I mean, that guy's still ticking. Him and Trump, they just keep they're still rocking. They're still rolling.
I don't understand how that. By the way, getting that treatment in the middle of being bombed to hit repeatedly. Here's the thing, though. Ever since the first ceasefire was violated because Israel went and dealt with Hezbollah in Lebanon, we have not really seen him publicly. Here's the other thing. Trump's appearances have been very limited. Obviously, the most friendly fire that they can find, Brett Beer and Fox and all this other kind of stuff. I have not seen any tangible evidence of an actual strategy, whether diplomatic or military, right? I'm a military dude. You're a diplomat. And are we missing something between the two of us? We have almost probably 50 years of experience in this. And
also people like you and me have a history of having worked together, right? Like the diplomats and the military folks work hand in hand. The first person you see when you go to a U.S. embassy is a U.S. Marine. They defend the diplomats, right? And we used to have, back when we still had Republicans and Democrats serving in the same administration, you had Secretary Gates and Secretary Clinton. He's a Republican holdover from the Bush administration. And you obviously Secretary, Hillary. And he went to the Senate and said, if you don't give the State Department enough money for diplomacy and for humanitarian work, then you're going to need to buy me more bullets, right? Like, this is just understood that this goes hand in hand. So let's not also forget completely eliminated USAID. And, we could also go down the rabbit hole of hantavirus and Ebola. This is actually the largest Ebola outbreak that we've seen. But, hey, let's put that to the side because we're still at war with Iran. And Trump wants to talk about a ballroom. Like, he sends out J.D. Vance a few hours ago to talk about Iran. And he says, I'm gonna talk about what I do best. And he talks about the ballroom.
So I'm glad you mentioned the symbiotic relationship between state and DOD. Right? Because I think you're absolutely right. We have seen in the past 15 months the complete almost defunding of the Department of State. But yet we also have $1.5 trillion requests for the new defense budget.
Yes. But let's talk about why we need more money for the Pentagon.
Yes, let's.
All right, let's talk. I mean, actually, it was even a year ago after that big, beautiful bill passed. They went back for saying, literally senior officials at the Pentagon said, we don't actually know what to do with this money. We didn't ask for this. You guys gave us more than we asked for. We don't know what to do with it. Oh, okay, great. So now you got more money. Let's do a war. Guess what? We are using tens of thousands of dollars of munitions, like a Tomahawk missile, to fight hundreds of dollars worth of drones.
Yes.
When we talk about asymmetric warfare, we usually talk about different types of kinetic activity. We talk about, integrating tech and ground fighting, the imbalance of power. I've never thought that we would be at a time where the asymmetric warfare is huge missiles that cost millions of dollars and something that, Russia can mail over to you in a box.
Well, it's kind of funny. Earlier today, I was thinking, welcome to naval guerrilla warfare. And here's the thing, you're hitting it on the head. I worked at Missile Defense Agency. I was a war games planner for this region of the world. What people need to understand, the cost of the rounds that we have of ammunition that knock down these drones. We're talking multi-million to a couple of $1,000.
Mhm.
That's not even talking about, like you mentioned, the Tomahawk inventory that we've gone through, multi-millions of dollars every time we shoot those things, and to shoot them in the wrong spots, i.e. the children's school, the girls' school that was hit. And by the way, Congress was grilling Hegseth on this past week. Like, where's the investigative report? They were getting on Admiral Cooper, Brad Cooper, who's the military commander. Where's the report? Gillibrand was killing him. This is ridiculous. And as we talk about,
like, we're really going to answer this with a report. That's classic.
Right, exactly.
But at least give it the lip service to do the report. They're not even doing that.
And so it's funny, as we're having this conversation in the chat, people are talking about what just popped up, New York Times, Thomas Massey, the one Republican that tried to stand up to this guy, has been ousted. He's been primaried out. Okay. Yep. So when people think we're at the end, or there's this blue wave is going to come, this right here shows you there is work to be done, because you now have Republicans asking, what is the end game here? The Senate is over here responsible for foreign policy on behalf of the people, and they don't even know the questions to ask. To watch Hegseth get up there. By the way, when are they going to bring up Marco Rubio and put his ass up there in front of the goddamn Congress? How has he been able to avoid all of this? Have you noticed that?
Well, that's still that old. Well, he's one of our own. He probably still has good relationships. Like, this is what's the problem with the establishment in the Senate. I mean, I keep reminding my students and other people, the average age of a U.S. senator is 67 years old.
Good Lord.
Right? So they are living in an it's average. That means how many of them are beyond that? So they are living in an alternate reality. And some of them are like, oh, well, Marco, we still have access, or we can still talk to him. But that's also probably because Rubio isn't involved in the Middle East. He's too busy trying to be viceroy of all of Latin America. Like, there's the whole Cuba debacle.
So you literally must have seen what I had.
Where are we going to go with all this?
Cuba. Please explain to me why the hell that's even coming out of people's mouths right now. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, this idea that Cuba is a threat to the United States, that's Cold War era politics, right? Like, this is not. Russia's not even looking. It's not like Russia's sending a bunch of missiles and might actually aim them. Like, we've been there, done that, saw how that played out. Raul Castro is probably
94. He's 94, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, but this is not a regime that is doing great these days. They're really on their last legs, and the whole going in and grabbing Maduro was to stop the oil flows to Cuba. Okay, so Cuba has no oil. They have, they're running low on humanitarian assistance. Like, all of that has been successfully blockaded, right? And I mean successfully because I'm like, again, why do we care so much? It's Cuba. Right. I get it. They're 90 miles away, but it's a communist country that is not fully functional, right? As a state right now. But that's still, the threat and concern. And lo and behold, we find out that Russia has sold 300 military-grade drones to Cuba. And so, all right, let's send the CIA director down there to have a stern conversation with them. And I sit here and look at this. I'm like, what did you think Cuba was going to do? You could have just left them alone. Let them mismanage their own government, economy, all of that. Let them do that. But now what? Once again, we're now worried about drones.
Yep.
Right? Like, with all of our military might and all the other skills we have, that's the concern that the Trump administration has. So this is where the Rubio piece comes in. His dad, this comes down from his dad, who is an exile from Cuba, and Rubio being Floridian, Cuban Republican, right? Like, this is his vision of freeing Cuba is essential to who he is and why he went into foreign policy. We're not shaking that loose from him at this point. And he's getting away with it because, Iran and China.
So here's something that I connected earlier today. It snapped in my mind. Drones, right? So I was asked a question on another podcast, what are we seeing? What are they saying about, what are your thoughts on Iran and drones? And what do you think about the war in Ukraine? I'm like, I'm going to connect the two. The American century is over. The Soviet century is over. And the war in Ukraine and the war in Iran is showing you this. We, the Americans, big, huge aircraft carriers, shows up, the might, the majesty, like Donald Trump's infatuation with battleships. Russia, the same way, overwhelming numbers of people, blah, blah, blah. The war in Ukraine was supposed to last 4 weeks. We're in year 4. Okay.
We're year 4?
The war in Iran was supposed to last 3 days. We are now going into the 3rd month. What do these two nations have in common? One, the arrogance of their aggressors. The United States was arrogant as hell. They believed that a civilization, get this, that's been in existence for thousands of years, was just going to turn tail and run when we showed up. Thousands of years. Okay. Then on top of that, they actually, Russia thinks, well, Ukrainians used to work for us. Well, Ukrainians were the ones that gave you that mentality of kick ass, take names, if you know anything about the history, right? You thought you were just going to roll up in there and they're going to be like, yeah, take it.
Again, homegrown advantage. Like, right, they're defending the homeland. If there was any rallying around the flag that was going to happen in Iran, it was after the U.S. arbitrarily attacked Iran. Right? I mean, and then eliminated the older guard that was actually more conservative. And here's an example when I say that they were more conservative of how they reacted to Israel and the United States. So after Israel attacked inside Iran, after the United States attacked inside Iran for the Fordo strikes, right? Like the nuclear bunker buster bomb thing that was a big deal for a week.
Yep.
Iran had to retaliate and save face, but they did that at empty U.S. military installations. They did that in the middle of nowhere. And they said, great, we responded. Done.
Right.
So like they're saving face, but that's like a conservative response. They could have done much more like, okay, this round is done. Everybody's happy. Got it. That is not who is in place right now.
Right.
What we have in place right now is the, regime jihadi John Wick, who's like, you killed my dad, my mother, my wife, my brother, like grandkids, my
wiped
children.
out the entire bloodline, basically.
And he's only in his 50s.
Yep.
What else he got to do? Nobody in the regime has ever cared about the people of Iran suffering. So great, continue the sanctions. The sanctions have been there for decades anyway.
Wow.
And now they have a revenge fantasy and a revenge story on their home territory.
Wow. I've not thought of it that way.
Gonna go.
Dude, you just said the jihadi John Wick, and you're absolutely right. You wiped out everybody, to include the dog. And what do you have? Bruh. And you have radicalized people that may have been moderate too.
Yes.
If you don't think
you didn't send in a CIA or have a big campaign like you did to install the Shah, let's not forget the U.S. has done this in Iran before.
Yes.
To get somebody else into power, didn't even have that going on. So it really is like you just decided to roll into Iran and thought you'd be done. Like you didn't do any of the groundwork.
No, the strategic arrogance of us to do it that way, like you said, when you already had done it. And for you to now be talking about Cuba, did you not check 1961 when we tried doing this with a much more competent goddamn cabinet? Are you kidding me? With a much more robust Cold War size CIA? Do you not understand history? Even if you go in and you're initially successful, how long do you think that's going to last? Like if we put boots on the ground in Iran today, what do you think is going to happen long term? It's like these jokers do not think past the end of the day or even end of the week.
Well, but this is part of why Trump doesn't want to be talking about it, right? I think there's part of him. He's over it, and he enjoys enjoys his reflecting pool that's going to look like an actual swimming pool and not like the Lincoln Memorial reflection pool. He enjoys his ballroom, right? Like so, there's a part of him that's moved on there, but there's also the canny part of him that knows how narrative works, which is as long as he doesn't talk about it, people may just forget. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years, right? Families on deployment. We are already overextended with the naval deployments, more than 6 months. Pre-positioned, in action, right? So families are already struggling, but who's really talking about it outside of this pressure of the election cycle? And so Trump is just trying to ride that out.
I'm glad you mentioned that. My entire Navy career, we were in the war on terrorism. It was ridiculous. I got commissioned. I retired. It was the same thing. What's interesting to me now that you bring that up too is I honestly think he's adopted the mentality of I don't care in so many aspects. But with
he literally said last week that he does not think about the financial consequences or impact on the American public of the Iran war.
Yeah. The only
when have we had a president actively just say, I
that.
don't care how the people's pocketbook is doing?
Yeah. It's unprecedented. On top of that, too, it seems the only thing that gets his attention is how the markets move. Yeah. Can you answer this question for me? With him saying, we're going to do this, we're going to bomb you, and backing off, and then saying we're going to do it again. How complicated does that make any type of negotiation? Like, this is the part that I'm not understanding. Maybe it's 6D chess, like his followers say, but I don't understand it from the surface, how you can say you're going to do one thing, don't do it. I'm going to bomb you to oblivion, don't do it. How does that work?
Yeah, he's, clearly followed through on bombing threats before. The challenge is that hasn't changed anything that the regime is willing to do. Right. So what's the purpose of bombing further? Truly. What's the purpose? Other than to show some kind of machismo and strength? Who ends up having to suffer when the U.S. bombs Iranians, allies in the region, which is why Saudi and UAE are like, yo, we've never liked Iran, but can you just chill for a minute? That's also been the other challenge, I think, is that when the negotiations were starting, they didn't integrate all these other interests, right? The Iran nuclear deal negotiations back in 2015 involved multiple countries at multiple layers. So like experts, then the middle layer, then the senior leaders to be like, okay, everything's worked out. Now we sign the deal. Sending JD Vance to Pakistan where nobody else is really involved or engaged, and then yanking his chain back, like, all of this indicates the U.S. is not serious about a political solution, or the United States doesn't know what it wants from a political solution. So Iran is just going to meme the hell out of this war.
It's
like, that's the thing, right? It's the narrative play. Iran's, they've already isolated in that sense the United States from allies. Well, Iran, the United States has isolated itself, but Iran has capitalized on that.
Patrick just kind of nailed it. We are losing to what he believed was a fourth rate. First of all, this is going to be something that historians, military strategists, diplomats, it's going to be at Kennedy School of Government. I can see it now, where you have an utter failure of a diplomatic capability because there's no strategic
I'll say it's more than that, though. Right?
Really?
They gutted the diplomatic entities and the institutional power intentionally, right? Gutted. They wanted to concentrate power and access only within the White House. This is not the first Trump where there's adults in the room who may question or check in with their expertise, right? Round two, we're not doing that. So only Trump, only people who will say yes to whatever he wants. Get rid of all the expertise, get rid of all those resources and everything else that was happening on the ground. And where has Congress been? Only now, literally today, has the Senate been like, hey, we're going to force a vote to make you come to us and justify this war because we're past the 60-day clock. Meanwhile, Yahoo's in the White House running around saying, oh, it's a ceasefire. The war's over, right? This doesn't count. Right? Like, it's the checks and the balances, like, they were broken well before they gutted the diplomats.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because now a lot of stuff's coming back. You're right. They fire all the diplomats, but what people forget too, and you can Google this, whoever's watching, there was a plan for them to centralize the military's chain of command. We have Northcom, Southcom, CENTCOM. We break the world up into these sections. Hegseth wanted to get rid of all of them except for 3. So he could concentrate this power in this little column where he gets to run everything and he has his hands on everything. That makes total sense when you see what they did to the Department of State and everything else. Holy crap.
And then look at our, the general in charge of Southcom was like, I think there might be some legal issues about the way we're
Admiral was like, I'm out.
Votes, that whole thing. So it's like, you're going too.
Right. And so in order to reduce resistance, they have reduced capability and capacity.
Yes.
Good God Almighty!
Like, I like that better that you said it as they've reduced capability and capacity, because I feel like the word expertise has no meaning anymore. Because people are like, expertise doesn't matter. I can, I did my own research. Thank you very much. You learned from Google. That doesn't know that you know how to read or do critical thinking, but okay, I hear you. I got it. Everyone can look shit up now. But that's what it is. There's a capability and a what was it? There's a capacity and capability that's disappeared. And yes, this is why you have these weighty decisions are resting in institutions where people typically knew what needed to go into making weighty decisions like this. It was not Fox News host who wants to look tough or former reality show president who also wants to look tough. Like, the motivations are entirely different when it is a professional class versus
right.
the television class.
So along those lines, then, what is going to be the actual end state? What's an acceptable end state? We're never going back to what it was before this.
No,
Nayyera, we can't.
People are like, oh, if we just, if you just this and that. I'm like, do you not understand what happened here?
No.
Like, this is,
for example, I'll give you a perfect example.
Like Saudi Arabia is like, oh my God, we are going to pull back from, we're not funding the Metropolitan ARPA. We're not funding y'all golf courses anymore. A, because we're pissed at you. But B, because we now have to build up our own East-West gas pipeline again.
This part. So the bases that got bombed out, 17, 18, however many they're saying, I don't see the incentive for the Gulf states to let us back up in there, because those bases were there to provide safety and stability so this doesn't happen. We, the United States, failed in that mission. And as a matter of fact, because they had the bases there, that's why they got bombed. Why would you let us back in?
This is the interesting thing, right? This bargain that had been made between the United States and Saudi back in 40s and 50s, which was oil for weapons. Yes. They did not need to have the type of military the United States has, because the United States was going to have bases and help supply that. That expanded to the other petro-states. So you have the Gulf petro-states on one side, you have Israel on the other. This was the U.S. grand strategy, fingers in the pie, boxing in the Irans and other actors in the region. But like you said, those bases then became the liability. It was a very easy target. The United States wasn't prepared. You have the Saudi military defending the U.S. embassy in Riyadh.
That part.
Right. You have Kuwaitis accidentally shooting down 3 F-15s because no one bothered to tell them those were Americans flying in their airspace. Like,
it was absolute cluster. And that's the point. That's the problem. There is no longer strategic value if I am Qatar, with the largest air base we have in the region. If I'm Bahrain, the headquarters of Fifth Fleet, which one of my offices was at, there's no reason. UAE, Jebel Ali, all those places. Why would we want America there? And Saudi Arabia was catching hell. I mean, Osama bin Laden hit us because Saudi Arabia allowed military base of Americans in that country.
Yeah, but then the Bush administration helped all the Saudi ambassadors and the Osama, bin Laden's family, everybody else. Like, they took care of them within 24 hours of 9/11, right? And the most underreported story of that era is how many Saudi citizens were part of those hijackers. Like, right? That is not. It went into war on terror. It did not. Right? The U.S. did a very good job as a government of making sure the Saudis directly did not suffer. And then now you're at Trump, where he just kind of forgot that Iran would attack our allies in the region. But also, I think the Saudis forgot. I mean, they were not unhappy that Iran has been getting attacked. They expected more competence from the United States.
Do we know how pissed off the Gulf states are at us? Any indications? Because
I think this is an interesting moment. When Trump was down in Miami, I believe it was. He was down in Florida for a Saudi investment conference.
Yes.
The Saudis are hosting a conference in Florida. Trump is at this event, and with a Saudi ambassador sitting in front of him and not having talked to Mohammed bin Salman, the prince, at all, Trump delivers a speech in which he says that, they all thought that I'd have to be kissing their ass, and now they're kissing my ass instead. That did not go down so well.
Man.
Like, comments, I'm like, oh, okay. You thought you were being funny, right? No, you don't mess with these people like that. No.
Not when they're giving billions.
But that's like insult on top of injury. Like, you should have been thanking the Saudi government for their defense of U.S. installations, of U.S. personnel, of American citizens. Like, that's the way you do that?
Yeah.
This was so this I don't know. I think the anger may be delayed because right now they're still processing immediate impacts. Right,
Mm.
Dubai lost the airport. All of the
Yep.
expats have left. They don't know when they're going to come back in. So this economy that was built on financial trade deals, how does that
Yes.
happen? Qatar was going to be pivoting out of being a petro state
Right.
into technology and innovation, and you're like, okay, now how do we do that? No one wants to
Hmm.
come through here.
Hmm. Hmm. And
So
that's
right,
the
like
thing.
they're now looking at how do their visions for their futures, their own economic well-being
Hmm.
have been disrupted by this. They don't know when that's going to get back on the path. And then there's also this idea of like, well, the US is a unreliable partner, and Saudi, I mean, they're part of the OPEC cartel, right? Russia's in there.
Right. 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 And
They don't, right? Like this is kind of like Russia's in there. Russia's clearly shipping drones and all sorts of things all over the place. China's sitting over there. They just got Trump to talk shit about Taiwan, and not like the US can actually right now give other people munitions and weapons, since we need to
Right.
restock our own. So China's sitting there looking at this like, oh, if we make a move on Taiwan, the US is too distracted. They're not
Right.
literally,
Right.
like you said, we don't have the capacity or the capability
Exactly.
to defend our interests in the South China Sea right now. We don't.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was going to get to these two in a second, but let's go there now. Trump flies all the way to Beijing to accomplish what? What was accomplished by him going all the way out there? He was talking noise before he got there, didn't really say much while he was there, and didn't say anything as he came back. So I'm asking, what was the point? What was the point of this?
I think China got a lot out of this, right? They were seen as on equal footing with the United States, like equal world powers, not world superpower and wannabe.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when the United States has gone in at that high level, there is still some kind of chastising. We're going to talk to you about human rights. We're going to tell you that you need to democratize your economy and like all of this stuff, where kind of speaking from a higher perch. Trump didn't do any of that. Trump actually kind of went hat in hand, like, hey, you want to buy our airplanes, right? We got soybeans, we got some beef. Like, you want a little bit of this, you want a little bit of that. And China's like, we want your entire electronic vehicle market.
Yeah.
We want you to open the market so that we can collapse your auto industry.
Yep. BYD. Because the second they get here, the second those electric cars, for those who don't know, China is light years ahead of us on like electric vehicles. I'm talking range.
Oh,
I'm talking
electric, green, everything.
It's over if one of those get here.
When Secretary of Energy Granholm went over there to China, and she was like, oh my God, like she saw their train. She's like, how did you guys do this? So, and they laughed like, we don't have elections.
Good Lord.
Right. And she's like, we don't have elections. And she's like, right. It's a command. They plan the economy. They implement it. There's no wrangling back and forth of this interest, that interest. I mean, there's a lot that's lost along the way, but that kind of quick progress that you can make when you have that centralization. Yes, that's what they did. And that's been the American reality for 10 years. Like, I'm talking Secretary Granholm. I'm not even talking this administration.
Yes. And that's the other. So the tech bros were in tow with that trip because of what you're basically mentioning right here. Ladies and gentlemen, the secret that Trump is desperately trying to hide is we have been left behind. And a lot of it is due to his policies. Yeah. If y'all remember, Elon Musk was pissed off at Trump before he jumped on board because Trump was going to slash all of that the electric vehicle programs, all of these things, that new age tech. And what was Trump saying on the campaign trail? Good old clean coal and oil and drill, baby, drill. All these things, like a broke ass J.R. Ewing from Dallas. It was just terrible. Mm-hmm. And because we're stuck in the 80s with the verbology that they use to talk tough, with the damn policies they use, since we're still talking about last century, we're getting left behind systemically and strategically. And America, we are the last to recognize it. The rest of the world is known.
What China really did in this, and the symbolism matters so much to them. Like, I don't even think Trump realized how much he got played, where they like, oh yeah, we'll roll out a red carpet for you. We'll make you feel good. We'll have a crowd of cheering children talking about how you're great. And the second your vehicle goes by, they're going to stop cheering because they were told to stop.
Yes. Hard stop. I noticed that too. And here's the other piece to this. While that was going on, Chinese vessels in the Strait of Hormuz were allowed to transit. The Iranians were like, go ahead, because, you know, they're the biggest supplier of oil to China in that region. And the United States knew not to mess with Chinese flag vessels. Double punked.
And they actually got the U.S. president, like I said, to talk shit about Taiwan.
That, which,
again, the symbolism on the words,
yes,
that matters in the Chinese view of the political game. So they came out like gangbusters out of this.
What does Taiwan do with this new reality? What does ASEAN do with this new reality?
Yeah.
The whole South China area, South China Sea area.
Yeah, Taiwan has had this interesting tension where there has been a crop of politicos there, like, you know, maybe we need to have some kind of deal or work better with China, with the mainland, versus the older generation hardliners like, oh my God, we were in exile, these terrible communists, we could never compromise. And that's, you know, a point of tension for the United States, because the United States has always kind of played this strategic ambiguity, which I'm like, come on, let's all, can we all just stop that at this point? Apparently not. Where it's like, oh, you know, we're not going to pretend that we support Taiwan as a country, but, you know, also recognize there's only one China because that's what China wants. So yeah, I think Taiwan is sitting there like Japan, like Korea, Vietnam, wondering how they now have to pivot and appease China in their backyard, because it's obvious that the United States is not going to be able to show up with hard defense capabilities.
Well,
and you think about Japan, right? That's head of Pacific Command, but they were forcefully demilitarized after World War II. Their army is the U.S. Army.
Right. They have a self-defense force.
Yeah. All of these old worries and fears that were supposed to have been put to rest after World War II are now back.
Right. I was literally about to say, we're repeating the same mistakes before World War I. And it's like, we didn't know that World War I and World War II existed, and why. These separate, all of a sudden, everybody's going to arm up, and then they're going to form their little micro alliances, and then there's going to be a spark. And right now, I think the thing that makes me fearful the most, there is a vacuum of leadership at the top of the world. It is obvious. China is naturally filling it. Russia's in support. But more importantly, these nations that spent a lifetime being against this feel like they've been abandoned. If you talk to the Danes, the Dutch, the British, the Aussies, all of them are just like, what do we do? They've already started talking amongst each other on what to do, you know? And is Canada going to, I mean, Canada seems
apparently this is what Trump wanted, right? Because he always talked about NATO depends on us too much.
Yeah.
All of these folks depend on us too much. I'm like, it's actually a good thing to have people in the world depend on you, because then they do things that you want. They also can keep their problems over there. That's why we had military bases in Germany and Poland and military there. Like, let's keep the problems there. Okay, let's just pull those troops back because Trump's pissy at those countries, and just see how much closer this all comes to our shores.
There's one offshoot that is happening here that the world is not paying too much attention to, but because, you know, of my background and stuff, the emerging pivot towards Africa for resources. The French rejected all this oil that the Nigerians, who now are able to refine their own stuff, push to the curb, because Africa is now realizing they're going to come back to us because they can't go to the Middle East for these resources. The rare minerals that Trump can't get from China, they're going to come to Africa. If you've not been paying attention, the United States has.
Trump was like, oh, yeah. And we talked about rare minerals. And like, the Chinese side didn't say anything about it.
Didn't say a word.
They didn't say a
word. And at the same time,
they didn't even agree.
We're bombing things in Africa right now. It's one of like the 8 hot conflicts the United States has that no one's talking about in Nigeria, and it's going to spread. AFRICOM, the head of AFRICOM was brought up to talk about this. They realize they need to do something. And I'm just going to say this, and this is a teaser for here in the future, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about the history, obviously the colonization, this, that, and the other, but the resources that are being expended in the Middle East and how that's going to play to Africa, and how Africa is going to tell us to pack sand. They're going to tell us.
Well, we already tell them to pack sand, right? Remember in World War II, we
sure did.
The academics and the researchers and scientists from all these countries that were being invaded. We took the German ones, right? Germans helped us build the bomb.
Mhm.
All of these things. Yeah, who's on the Muslim ban list? Nigeria.
I was about to say.
And by the way, people don't realize this. The wealthiest and most economically contributing immigrant group is not Indians in the United States. It's Nigerians. They have the most, they come here with the highest rates of education and contribution to the economy. And they're the ones like, nope, not going to take them.
This is going to be interesting.
No, there's like, it's like we've boxed the good things out along with all the bad ones.
Nayyera, I could talk to you for hours on this. And I really appreciate you taking time. You know, please tell everybody where they can find you when not on cable news.
So I have been doing these short videos called State of Our Nation, 3 Things to Know. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them on my page at Nayyerroar, Nayyerroar. Always looking for recommendations on what folks want broken down, but it's whatever the news stories of the day, 3 important things to know. So check that out. And yeah, we need to keep talking about this. This is, I go back to where we started. I don't know what to tell you, man. I can analyze this. We can do history. I don't know where this is going.
No, it's a wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Subject matter expertise given to you, raw, uncut, and experience. God, boy, it'd be nice to have that in the White House right now. Experience in dealing with these issues. Nayyera, thank you so much for joining us this evening. You are awesome.
Thank you. Thanks, Bobby.
No problem. Thanks, everybody.